Hi, everyone, and thank you for tuning in for today's webinar on Introduction to the Connected Marketer. Let's go over today's agenda before we get started. I'm Max Thorpe, today's moderator. I've been writing for CMO.com, working for mCordis. Today, the agenda after we get through the introduction, we're going to kind of dive right into it after touching briefly on our new Connected Marketing Fundamentals ebook. It's a three-part series. We'll address the connected marketer, and at the very end, we'll address all questions with a Q&A period. So please hold all your questions to the end. With that, or the ebook. Right now, part 1 and 2 are out, The Rise of the Connected Individual and The Rise of the Connected Marketer. Part 3, The Heart of Connected Marketing, will be coming out next week in the new year. So please stay tuned for that. You don't want to miss that. And then moving forward, let's meet today's speaker, Paul Berney, managing partner and co-founder of mCordis and the Connected Marketer. Paul, could you please introduce yourself?
Thanks, Max, and good afternoon or good morning, everybody, depending upon where you are in the world. It's good afternoon here from me in London. So, Max, today I'm really going to give people a brief introduction to the Connected Marketer idea and the Connected Marketer approach and framework, which is something we've been developing really over the last year. Essentially, the argument I'm going to present to you is this. The more connected devices that we own in our lives, the more constantly connected we become. That constant connection leads to a state of connectedness, a constant awareness that we are connected. And that connectedness is leading us towards behavioral change. When you add those three things together, the devices, the mental state of being connectedness, and that behavioral change, you see that what we are becoming is connected individuals. And the rise of connected individuals leads to an equal rise of the connected marketer. So that's essentially the argument I'm going to be taking you through today. But really, this webinar is mostly about change and your ability to react. We all know how important it is that both as individuals and as marketers and representing our brands, that we change, not only we accept change, but if we want to thrive, then we have to respond to change. We also know that, if we're going to do something new in marketing or in business full stop, then we have to let go of some of the old things that we've been doing in the past. And that's part of what we're looking to encourage people to think about here today. So let's start by looking at what has changed over time. Forrester did this fantastic study back in 2011 when they talked about dividing the basis of competition up into 4 distinct ages. So about 100 years ago, around 1900, we were really in the age of manufacturing where everything was ruled by the people who created products and or services. Somewhere around 1960s, we see the rise of supermarkets in particular, and it's the age of distribution where those people who distribute the products are the ones who are more in control. Then somewhere around 1990, we're entering into the age of information where it becomes the control of information that is the most important part of the relationship. And of course, more latterly around 2010, we've entered the age of the customer, internet-enabled, mobile phone-enabled customers who are really in control of the relationship between the brand and themselves. And at the time, Forrester talked about there being a 20-year business cycle that we had just entered into somewhere around 2011. So we should be kind of 5 years, 6 years into that cycle they've discussed. But actually, at mCordis, we took a look at that and thought, we've actually moved into the age of the connected individual. And we're very pointed about saying connected individual. We don't mean shopper, connected consumer, or connected patient, connected voter, but very much connected individual. We are constantly connected, but we only become those other mind states in shopping and consumer or patient or a voter at distinct parts of the day. I probably don't have to tell anybody listening in on the webinar today that, we are constantly connected ourselves. The mobile phone tends to be, for many of us, the first thing we see in the morning and the last thing at night. And indeed, some of us are still connected while we're sleeping, managing our sleep patterns. we also live in this age of ubiquitous connectivity where, almost the first thing that any of us do when entering into a room these days is look for the Wi-Fi code so that we can stay connected. Around about 5 or 6 years ago, Rupert Murdoch described the world as being split into digital immigrants and digital natives, but actually what we've become now is digital dependence. And that digital dependence and that use of mobile in particular has led to us changing our behavior. And many of you on this webinar today will have seen this photo before of 3 world leaders at Nelson Mandela's funeral taking a selfie. And if that doesn't show a kind of range of behavioral change, then nothing else will. We also know that because our constant access to a mobile device next to ourselves, that mobiles have become our external brains. By that I mean they allow us to know what we never used to know before and forget the things that we used to have to forget. We know that the constant closeness of those mobile devices as well has led to us living in an almost constant state of distraction where we're picking up our mobile device and putting it back down again and looking at it and looking to connect with our digital selves constantly. And I think that this knowledge that we live in a state of constant connectivity is actually more important than the device or more important than the means of connection. Because partly what it's doing is it's leading to a demand for instant gratification. This is really important distinction when we're thinking about the connected individual. Google likes to call these micro moments, points whereby we can pick up our mobile device and tap and know, tap and find, tap and go, tap and buy anything. And let me give you an example of that. If I mentioned the name of a book that's somewhere, right here on my desk in front of me right now, I have a book by Kevin Kelly that I'm reading called The Inevitable. Really great book. If you're listening in, I would heartily recommend it as a good read. But while you're listening to me, you could just quite easily go onto your Amazon app or onto Amazon on the web, find the book, order it, have it delivered by Amazon Prime tomorrow or even today, depending upon where you live in the world. And for 30 seconds out of the 30 minutes of this webinar, you became a connected consumer. But for the entire time, you knew that you lived in this state of connectedness and you could make that happen. So that's really an important distinction for us. It's also important to consider that the younger that you are on this call, the more likely that you are to see less distinction between physical and digital. For many young people, those two things and those two states are both exactly the same. They're with their friends, whether they're with them digitally or physically. And the younger that we are, indeed, we will never be disconnected from our digital selves. And the more devices that we have, the more we're connected to the Internet of Things, or depending upon your perspective, the Internet of Everything, the Internet of Me. The more of these devices that we have, the more connected that we become. And by 2020, it's estimated that on average in the Western world, at least, we'll have 10 connected devices and 140 sensors associated with us. And by 2022, the average household in the US is going to have 50 internet connected devices. So this state of constant connectivity exists around us, and it's changing our mindset and changing our behavior. And then we add on top of that augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and we start to see that we're entering a very, very different world with all of the connectivity and all the possibility that that brings to us. For me, that means there's been a change in the role of the CMO. The CMO is no longer an expert in one particular thing, but in fact, if you like, the conductor of their own orchestra. The CMO, or the marketing director today, is the person most responsible for bringing everything together in concert and in harmony and making it all work together. And so we see that there's been a change in the way that we behave and a change in the way that marketers behave in response to that. It's an almost, if you like, a kind of Newtonian reaction, an opposite and equal reaction that brings us to becoming connected marketers. So when we look at what a connected marketer does, at its most basic, they create connected brands. they're good at bringing together physical and digital experiences and delivering them consistently. So as someone that flies constantly between the US and the UK, I'm a big user of Virgin Atlantic. Clearly, it's a physical service on an aeroplane, but they also have a great digital service and, in fact, a great mobile service. So I book my tickets online, but I download my boarding pass onto my mobile, and I engage with the airline constantly on my mobile device during my pre-travel, during travel, and sometimes post-travel too. So it's clearly a physical product, but with a great digital experience that runs with it. If it didn't have a great digital experience, in all likelihood, I would look for an alternative airline. You know, one of the things that's notable about people that deliver great digital experiences is they set a precedent that others have to match. So once you know that one airline can deliver your boarding pass via digital or via mobile, then you want them all to. But you can be just as easily the other way around. Amazon is clearly the king of the e-commerce world or m-commerce world. It's very definitely a digital brand, but it has a physical point of connection in its delivery service. If Amazon's delivery service didn't work, then they wouldn't be anywhere near the success they are today, because the digital delivery service is the manifestation, physical manifestation of that brand. Great connected brands go beyond that, though. They synchronize and merge those physical and digital experiences. They find ways of making the two things dovetail together in such a way that we stop thinking about the two of them being separate and different. So Marriott hotels and others, in fact, these days allowing you to check in on your mobile device when you reach a hotel. Sephora doing a great job of allowing their customers to have a digital experience both in store and out of store. The use of mobile in store, in fact, has enabled us or retailers to make every single surface interactive. And this kind of change is not restricted to retail environments only or CPG brands only, for sure, because there are examples here of Kaiser Permanente introducing a merged digital and physical experience in their hospitals, so that you have telemedicine within their hospitals, so that you can talk to your doctor or your consultant live from another location, but while you're still in the physical hospital. And indeed, there's been some really smart stuff like the Sci-Fi channel connecting with the Philips Hue internet-enabled lighting system. That means that while you're watching a movie on Sci-Fi channel, the lighting in your room can change to match the mood of the movie. So this is pretty clever stuff. The most obvious merging of physical and digital experiences this year, though, of course, has been Pokemon Go. It's very definitely a mobile game, but you can only play it in a physical world. You have to get up and move around in your house in order to participate. If you turn on the AR mode, of course, you're looking through both the mobile phone and seeing the Pokemon, but overlaid on top of a real life environment. So it's a great example of how people have become used to a merger of physical and digital together. And after a while, they stop thinking about those two things being separate and just think of them as being part of all one experience. What happens is that over time, of course, the technologies that are the most successful kind of disappear into the background for us. Really great brands that are good at doing connected marketing blends together both physical, digital, sensorial experiences, and indeed emotional experiences together. Of course, Apple are a brand that is great at doing this. If you think about the last time you unboxed an iPhone, for instance, you'll note that it took a certain amount of time for the lid to disconnect from the box as you pull the phone apart, and there's a distinct Apple smell to their product. Those things are deliberately engineered to add a sensorial and emotional connection to Apple products. The people that are really though at the top of the tree in terms of using the connected marketer approach are the brands that figure, how do we merge together synchronized digital, physical, emotional, sensorial experiences that solve customer problems? Here we're looking at people like CVS, their curbside product pickup service that allows you to click an order on your mobile device, drive into the parking lot of your local CVS, and have someone come out of the store with your shopping. You pop your trunk and they drop the shopping bags into the rear for you so that you don't have to even get out of your car and join the queues. Or indeed, if we look at Walgreens and the fantastic job they've done of just adding mobile scanning of the prescription in order that people can simply scan the side of their prescription bottle, order or reorder their prescription, and receive a push notification to tell them when to come and collect it when it's ready in the pharmacy. These are things that are taking away simple problems in people's lives. A brand that really gets this well, though, is Starbucks. Starbucks have really concentrated on bringing together a mobile and digital experience to create more customer loyalty. They have more than 15 million users of their loyalty app, more than 1 million transactions a week. Almost a quarter of all their revenue is now passing through that. But they've gone beyond simply the mobile payments and mobile loyalty scheme. Starbucks Mobile Order and Pay, which is this ability to tap on your app, order your coffee before you get to the store, and then pick it up without waiting in line, is now representing something like 5% of all US transactions, and is, of course, most widely used at the busiest stores and the busiest times. Why? Because what it really does is it merges together and synchronizes the digital and physical experience and takes away the single problem that people hate the most, which is they hate queuing. We hate queuing from waiting in line. So Starbucks has done a great job of combining their digital and physical experience together to solve that problem. If you think about the last time you went into a Starbucks, you'll also note that they always play new music. That, again, is a deliberate act on their part. They want you to associate Starbucks with the sound of discovery of new music, hence their very recent deals with Spotify to add new music. They also try to make personal connections with you when they ask you your name and call it out. That's about making a connection. And so Starbucks really genuinely recognizes that their success is all about building an emotional connection. It's all about combining digital, physical, sensorial, and emotional experiences together that solve customer problems. The reason why it works for all of those brands is this. They recognize that brand experience is not just the product or the service itself, but it's every single interaction that you have around that product, both physical and digital. It's every channel that you connect with a brand through. It's all the time and forever. My experience of a brand is completely unique to me, of course, because I'm the only one experiencing it the way I am. But my experience is built upon every single interaction I have with a brand, and any one interaction can change or alter that brand view I have or my brand preferences. And so that's part of the drive behind brands and marketers having to recognize that we need this much more connected and joined up approach that can be achieved through the connected marketer. So we looked at over more than 10 years of working with hundreds of brands, agencies, and technology companies around the world in mCordis and roles before that. Myself and my partner, Michael Becker, looked at all those interactions and looked at the ways in which we could develop a framework to help brands introduce this connected marketer idea. We've also looked at the way in which brands like Starbucks have done this and thought about ways of kind of reverse engineering what they've done. And for us, there are three key parts to this task. The first is managing those four human dimensions that I talked about there: physical, digital, sensorial, and emotional. The second, which I'm not going to have time to get into on this webinar in particular, but maybe in a later one, is to master 7 different layers of connectivity. But what I'm going to talk about in the rest of this webinar is adopting 4 key tasks. This is what we see marketers doing that are being successful in this in the age of the connected individual. what we see them doing is focusing all of their time on 4 things that have really delivered the most value. The first of those is to build an understanding, and that's really harking back to the most fundamental of all marketing skills, really, which is to understand what your target audience wants and then find a way of delivering that. And in the digital age, there are so many more ways to build understanding of people, not just through the connections that you have and the interactions that you have with any individual, but also clearly through research and delivery of insight that way, but also through every single digital interaction someone has with you, through adding data through other sources, through social media, through using behavioral economics to understand how individuals are reacting, and crucially, through taking all of this understanding and putting it through the lens of looking at the customer journey or the individual's journey that they have with you, and finding the ways of merging and synchronizing the connected, the human dimensions, the physical and digital dimensions at each stage of that customer journey. The second key act that we see people key task we see people taking on board is to enable that connected individual by connecting with them, engaging with them, and influencing them. Here we're saying, yes, there is a customer journey and we should be looking at that, but actually there's no linear customer journey. If there ever was one, we certainly don't see that consumers any longer move from awareness through to advocacy. They are much more likely to take a circular and very individual route in their customer journey. They could engage with your brand at multiple different points within that journey. And what they're looking for from you is consistency of the way in which you interact with them at every stage of that journey through whichever channel they choose to go through. And we also know that individuals increasingly expect a high degree of personalization in that journey. We are getting used to the idea that every product and every service can be personalized to us. We're getting used to that because the people that do this best, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Starbucks, all focus on delivering highly personalized services. And that's really one of the big challenges for brands, is that the expectations of consumers are not being set simply by you or your nearest competitor in whatever industry you work in. They're being set by whatever the best digital experience is that an individual can have before they become a consumer. Our third key task then is to remove the barriers to engagement, to find ways of making life easier for people. One of the paradoxes of the digital age is that actually we have more choice than ever. Actually, that choice, that paradox of choice, can actually be very confusing for people. So again, when you look at the people who are most successful in removing challenges for individuals in engaging with them, they do it by removing choice and through personalization. The next time you go to your Amazon homepage, for instance, take a look at how much of that homepage, no matter how you're accessing it through your mobile device or your desktop, but take a look at just how much of that is personalized to you. And if you heard a slight interruption of personalization there in the background, my Echo device interrupted my presentation, but there you are. There's more personalization for you in action. So we as marketers want to find the points of friction within your individual customer journey and find ways to remove those. Finally, we want to find ways to be of service to the connected individual. And here there's a really key lesson and really a fundamental underlying principle for us. The goal here as a marketer should be to collect data and to use that data to deliver value for individuals, not from them. And that's a really key difference, because many brands are collecting data on their customers and on their consumers, and their first thought is, how can I make more money out of this? And actually what we should be thinking about is, how can I use this data and this information, this insight, to deliver something of service to my target audience that will create a greater brand connection? So what we should have seen throughout all of this is that actually the fundamentals of marketing are still the same. And what's different about the connected marketer here is that it's the capabilities that are changing, what we need to do. We quite often think in mCordis of the connected marketer as being kind of like a Renaissance person. You know, Leonardo da Vinci was the ultimate Renaissance man, for instance. He was someone that refused to be defined by one single discipline and tried at being an architect, a painter, a designer, and he took on many different tasks and really tried to learn from as many different places as possible. And we try to think of the connected marketer as being someone like that will learn from multiple experiences. But we also want to think about something that Da Vinci himself was grateful for, which is he was helped in his way by what you might now call the Medici effect. The Medici family in Venice were the people who bankrolled a lot of artists and artisans and brought them all together in Venice all at one time so that they could meet together, and the intersection of where all those different people met created completely new concepts and new ideas. And you should be open to doing that yourself. So partly what we try to encourage people to do is to take ideas on not just from their own industry and those that are close to them, but take on board ideas from many different industries and many different sources, and find ways of building new ideas and doing that. Clearly, in amongst all of the ideas that I've talked about today here, you are going to, as connected marketers, going to need to take on board more skills in managing data, because data really sits at the heart of the connected marketer approach. And that is everything from collection through to acting upon that data. And we can only encourage people to really think about the role that data plays in the connected marketing age, because the connected individual is providing you potentially with hundreds, if not thousands, of data points about what they're interested in and what their preferences are. And used in the correct way, that data can form a much greater bond with individuals. And you will have to, as marketers, either hire people that know how to use these skills, or you'll have to learn new skills for yourselves, because data science is clearly going to become a fundamental part of every marketing role going forward. I wouldn't want to leave you with the impression, though, that everything in the connected marketing world is always going to be about data. There is still going to be an enduring and massive role for creativity, for problem solving, for critical thinking, and for ways of collaborating together with people and learning how to work with others. So let me finish off by saying a couple of things. When we look at the connected marketing leaders that we see out in the marketplace, they have some common characteristics. They're good at creating merged and synchronized brand experiences that bring together physical, digital, sensorial, emotional experiences all together. They very much focus on solving customer needs. They understand they live in the age of the connected individual. They find ways to combine experiences and channels together to enable that connected individual. They very much focus on ways to reduce the friction in the lives of connected individuals, and they find ways to be of service to that connected individual. So as a summary of all that I've really just gone through there, the connected marketer creates merged and synchronized physical, digital, emotional, and sensorial products and services that solve customer problems. Now, a lot of that is going to sound like it's challenging, and it is going to be challenging. It is a big change for many brands and many marketers. And so over the last 6 months in particular, mCordis has been developing a way of bringing marketers and brands through this that really takes them through 3 major steps in a journey. And this may take anywhere between 6 to 12 months to enact. But the starting point is to kind of get immersed in the ideas around what the connected marketer is about, then to build understanding between you and your teams at a strategic level, to focus on journey mapping, to really look at the total experience that the consumer has and the connected individual has, then look at the underlying technology you currently have in place to manage all of that, and then move to a third stage, which is really about being more tactical, about application execution. We focus on how do we create these 7 layers of connectivity? How do we find all the friction points in the journey and reduce them? How do we create value for connected individuals? And then a crucial final step, which is how do we tell that story both internally in our own businesses, externally with our partners and suppliers and others, and even further externally with the connected individuals themselves. So with that, Max, I'll hand it back over to you to look at whatever questions that we've received while I've been talking.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. That was great. So while we had that, we had a couple questions come in. The first one looks like it was from someone who tuned into our last webinar. So I'll get right into it. Paul, what is new about this connected marketer approach? So much of this sounds familiar.
Yeah, well, to a certain extent, it should sound familiar because, as I said partway through here, the connected marketer approach is rooted in the fundamentals of marketing. I mean, we kind of got tired of listening to people talking about traditional marketing, digital marketing, content marketing, social media marketing, as if there are hundreds and hundreds of types. There are certainly hundreds of descriptions of marketing. If you Google it, you'll find hundreds. But we're pretty much of the view that there's just marketing. And actually what's different about the connected marketer is I hope it provides a very simple framework that says your goal is to bring together those physical and digital and sensorial and emotional experiences, bring them all together and create a merged set of experiences that focus on what the individual wants. So what has changed most is the capabilities that we have available to us, the channels we have available to us, and the skill sets that we need in order to execute against this.
Right. Thank you. That was perfect. Another thing that you mentioned, specifically in the examples, you mentioned Starbucks several times. Aside from Starbucks, though, what other brands do you think are really doing a great job of getting this connected approach right, this connected marketing approach right?
Well, I think there are some really great standout brands that are doing a good job. I did mention briefly Sephora. I think they do a really great job. Sephora is a brand I think everybody should be looking at. They are a brand that understands very well their target audience, which is young women, often early teens upwards, who are relatively new to wearing makeup. And Sephora understands that they need help to work out, what colors suit them best, which items go with each other. And they've really done a great job of digitally enabling their own stores by allowing products to be scannable, but also by creating great online content, because of course they know that what thousands of women, if not millions of women around the world are doing, is they are looking at YouTube videos which offers them advice on how to go about the process of putting on makeup. So I think they do a good job. I think Under Armour are doing some interesting stuff in here. I think Patagonia are doing some interesting stuff. There's a UK cycling brand called Rafa, which is pretty dear to my own heart personally, who I think do a great job of merging these things together. So there are plenty of brands out there. And in fact, we've invited a lot of these to talk at our summit and awards, which I know you'll talk about later on, Max.
Absolutely. And then our final question, what is the biggest mistake that you think brands are making?
That's an interesting question. So I think a lot of it relates to data. I think a lot of brands are collecting data for the sake of it. They don't really know what they're doing with it. I mean, we're trying to encourage people to think about you're collecting data in order to build your understanding, in order to create some way of personalizing your products and services. So I think a lot of it's about the way what is being collected and how it's being used. Very, very often, you're just seeing it being collected for the sake of it without people thinking, how do I turn that data into insight? So I think that's probably number one. I think maybe the second, if I can mention too, is brands treating all the channels they've got as if they're all separate somehow. I mean, as an individual, think about how you think about any brand. I don't take a conscious effort to say, today I'm only going to think about BMW from a physical experience when I get in my car, or I'm only going to engage with my bank, via their ATMs today. Everything I do, every time I touch a brand in some way, informs how I feel about that brand. And I don't make a conscious decision to say, hey, they're great at one thing and not so great at another channel, or the experience is different. And that's hard for marketers. You've got to try and create and deliver a really consistent brand experience across every channel all the time. And I get that's hard to do, but that's part of the task of being a connected marketer.
Well, exactly. I mean, if it were easy, then everybody would be doing it.
Well, hopefully they will all be doing it, Max, by the time we go. But let's I'll let you talk about how we can support them to kind of start their journey.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for submitting your questions. Great webinar today. You can get in touch with Paul at his email, as well as the Connected Marketer website and mCordis listed in front of you. Also, on January 23rd and 24th, coming up in San Francisco, we're having our first Connected Marketer Summit and Awards ceremony. It is a 2-day event with workshops on the 23rd and the main event day on the 24th, featuring a number of world-renowned speakers from places like Amazon, Keurig. Paul Berney will be flying out from London, so you have an opportunity to meet him in person. There will also be an award ceremony at the end to recognize the top connected marketers the past year. That will be an annual thing going forward. So please, I encourage you all to check it out. You can do so at theconnectedmarketersummit.com. And then also a reminder, you can pretty much get a synopsis of what we covered today at your own pace by reading the ebook. I encourage you all to do that as well. So please attend the event, check out the ebook, and thanks again for tuning in today's webinar. Thank you.